Episode 8 of Premside Pod. Today, going to be talking more about Nations League, a little bit about England's struggles. Um, let's generally get into kind of our thoughts about the Nations League. It was like a 2 week kind of stint of these matches. 4 out of the 6 group matches played. What do you think of the Nations League? These
The Nations League, it's been interesting. We've been fortunate enough to see a lot of packed footy, watching England, 4 games, 11 days. There's been a lot of it. But, I've definitely been seeing a lot of controversy online. Some people love it, some people don't. And I think the Nations League, it kind of has like an identity complex. Like people don't know whether or not to treat it like glorified friendlies or legitimate international competition. We see when we talk about the GOAT debate, people are willing to give the Nations League to Ronaldo when talking about wins, and they're also willing to give the Finalissima to Messi. And these competitions, not just the Nations League, but also the Finalissima, these are like interesting competitions that FIFA or UEFA's come up with to like drive competition. But every team holds them to a different regard. And I think, especially in the case of England, it looks like Gareth Southgate's used them to almost test out his squad, figure out new rotations for the upcoming World Cup. But personally, I like the Nations League. It's an opportunity to see different teams play, more international footy. So I'm for it. Jaffe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, and I think now it's shed so much light on kind of England's struggles. I think a big part about like England, and I mean, we're going to talk a lot about them now, but they had Southgate and they appointed him pretty long ago. Like he was in charge for their run in 2018 in the World Cup when they went to the semifinals, obviously last year with the Euro finals. But Southgate, like he's a manager that relies on defensive tactics, solid structure, solid base. The team, I mean, there's a lot of questions of creativity, but when it works well, and we saw in the Euros how well it was working, everyone's quiet and saying Southgate's a genius because he has these 1-0 wins, these wins where kind of England don't look like they're going to concede. And we've seen that in the Nations League. Obviously, they conceded 4 today, but like the creativity is massively lacking, and I think that he needs to sort that out, or else, I mean, immediately after the World Cup he's going to be gone.
I think this debate's pretty short and I'll keep it quick myself. No England manager has done a better job with England than Gareth Southgate in the past 68 years. He's
It's true,
brought
yeah.
he's brought them to a World Cup semifinal, he's brought them to a Euros final. This England team is incredible on their day. Arguably the best in the world. If you haven't seen them in the FIFA rankings, you've seen it in the way they play. This is arguably the next England golden generation. Half of this team is under the age of 25. They're so exciting to watch, but yet again, they did underperform in the Nations League. But I'm not gonna be too strict about that. Especially this England team. Half of that team's been having long seasons, as we've seen. Liverpool Champions League final, West Ham making a Europa League run, Chelsea playing 60 plus games this season with the Super Cup, Club World Cup, Champions League, Premier League. This was definitely a tired England team, and we saw that. I'm not too nervous. They do have a while for the World Cup, but I do think Southgate has to figure things out, and hopefully he definitely knows how to move it forward.
Yeah, and I fully agree. Like, I think saying Southgate out at this point,
It's
it's
reactionary. It's reactionary.
reactionary, and it makes no sense because, like, you've backed him when he's performed, and now he's struggling in this competition, this Nations League competition. Like, you can't like you can't bash him for that. But I do think, like as you said, there definitely are things to figure out. I think he has that whole defense situation where, I mean, the center backs for me are the biggest issue, like John Stones, Maguire, um, Gahey. We've seen a little bit, but like I just don't think that those guys can take a team to a World Cup final, win that World Cup final. I think they need to transition back to a back three, a back five. Like I think Kyle Walker needs to be in that. I think Tamori needs to find his way onto the left. He was playing left center back for AC Milan. So, and he was excellent. I mean, they won the Scudetto. Like that's a player that has proven himself this year. And then in the middle, like it's going to be biased, but I think Eric Dyer. I've seen him command a back three with Christian Romero, Ben Davies all season. Like, and I think he could do it again. England need a player to progress the ball, like from the back, and they don't have that right now. I think a big thing too on the right with Kyle Walker when he's wide, he kind of like hinders that creativity that they have that could be used by a Reece James or a Trent. So I mean, I think defensively they gotta they gotta sort it out. I mean, would you play like a back four or back five? Like, I mean, because a back five it does require more in depth tactics, and I don't know if Southgate is the man for that.
But that's the thing, though. There's just questions all across the board for this England
Yeah,
team. And that's the biggest scare leading up to this World Cup in the winter. Gareth Southgate, I think, has absolutely no idea what his best 11 is, whether that's the front three, whether that's a back four, whether that's a back five. And quite frankly, I don't even know if Pickford even holds it down in the net anymore. Ramsdale's making a push. We have no clue what's going on in the midfield. Conor Gallagher breaking into this England team's played once. Declan Rice, probably going to be a starter, but unconvincing, truthfully. Same thing with Calvin Phillips and Jude Bellingham, very poor in the Nations League. A lot
yeah,
of questions around this England team.
a lot.
I hope they figure it out. They only have 4 games left until the World Cup, so they don't have that much time, despite how long it is.
Yeah, little comment here. USA dark horses to win the group. Like I honestly think
I'm going to
England
dismiss
will
that right
win
off the
the World Cup.
bat. No,
Yeah, no,
no.
I don't think so either. I think USA could give Wales like a run for their money, but I don't know. I think that's going to be interesting. England definitely the top team in that group, but again, they need to sort out those little individual battles. And I mean, right off the bat, I can tell you I would switch to that back five. I would play Pickford, Trent on the right, on the left, probably maybe Bukayo Saka or Reece James, like Chilwell if he's healthy. And then I would play three center backs of Tamori on the left, Dyer in the middle, and Kyle Walker on the right. And then a pivot of James Ward Prowse and Declan Rice. Because I mean, I just think that like they also at midfield they need a player that can control the tempo. We see how static they are sometimes, and like I just think like they need something and someone to command the team differently. I mean, would you agree with that?
I definitely agree. And Gareth Southgate said recently that the United players that are missing out in the squad, Luke Shaw, Marcus Rashford, and Jadon Sancho, they have a long way to go. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about that. Yes, Jadon Sancho's had a very rough transition to the Premier League. He's certainly not playing his best football, but he's a creative player at the end of the day. And I think you need someone like him in the England squad. Maybe Marcus Rashford, not so much. His dip in form has been very evident. But even Luke Shaw, he scored in the Euro final. I think these are key players in the England camp that they're missing. And I really hope, they can figure it out. They are definitely one of the favorites. They're for sure going to win the group. That's not even a question, in my opinion. But definitely a lot of questions around this England team. But just to
Yeah,
talk about the USA for a bit, it's an exciting team. I mean, look, Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, those are two very good players that are playing European football. Also, Serginho Dest, Zach Steffen
Harrington coming to the Premier League too.
going to Leeds. I mean, definitely nice to see a lot of young American talent in the Premier League, but this team is definitely far from being where they need to be to make a real World Cup run. But I'm not going to keep them out. The United States has consistently been able to produce good young talent for the past couple of years, and I don't think at this World Cup, but I think in 2026 we could definitely see some exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Just finishing up with England too. They do have that dilemma on the left wing, and I think with both wings, like you mentioned with Sancho, I don't think Saka is fit to play on the right. But on the left, you have three English players, three Man City players, Raheem Sterling, Jack Grealish, and Phil Foden. What would you do? Like start bench cut with those three? And I mean, if you were Southgate, who would you be starting on the left for England?
Definitely a great question. All three players, absolute world class on their day. But it's an easy answer for me. It's got to be Sterling. Sterling's always stepped it up in the England shirt. I remember in the Euros, a lot of questions going on about whether or not he should start. He wasn't really consistently playing for Man City. He wasn't really playing that well. But the second he has the Three Lions kit on, he rises to the occasion. You saw that in the Euros. He bagged the goals, scored the first like 3 goals for England in the tournament, I think. When Raheem Sterling plays for his country, he steps up to the occasion. For me, the bench is going to be Foden. I know it's an interesting one because Grealish was definitely a shock off the bench in the Euros, and that was much needed for England as they were progressing through the knockout rounds. But I think Foden, when you talk about like someone that can just inject creativity, that's Phil Foden. He's young, he's exciting. Give him that England experience, and he'll tear it up on the world stage. Grealish, also an incredible player, but for me, he gets the cut. But honestly, at the end of the day, I'm happy with either Grealish or Foden coming off the bench. But I think Sterling secured that starting spot.
Yeah, and I mean that's it's fair to say, and we are talking about England. For me, I think like of course England, I think they need that second player other than Harry Kane that can provide goals, and Sterling was that player in the Euros. But I think that they're just lacking, as I said, that kind of player that can dictate the pace of a game, dictate tempo, progressively carry the ball. So for this England team, if I'm Southgate, I'm starting Jack Grealish, I'm benching Raheem Sterling, um, and I'm cutting Phil Foden.
Listen, fair takes, but I don't know. I just think Sterling, he's the more consistent option. He's the more reliable option. He has the experience, and the stats speak for themselves. But, at the end of the day, this is Gareth Southgate's dilemma, and let's
Yeah.
just hope he figures it out before the World Cup.
Yeah, and I just think the thing with Sterling, like, I was watching him today, and just I mean, recently when I've just watched Raheem Sterling, like, I feel like he's lost that kind of killer instinct that he used to have when he was such a youngster. Like Raheem Sterling he's been playing for almost a decade now, which is it's crazy to believe, but he's still only 27, and at 27, any player should be kind of entering the peak of their career. But Raheem Sterling is not kind of viewed as that player, I feel.
I mean, it's a good point. He's been linked away to Barca potentially. I do doubt whether or not that's going to happen, but I think a player really entering his prime, it would be nice for him to see some consistent playing time. But also, like when you talked about his performances lately, this like City team and all three players, below have really been drained. Phil Foden was, like injured before the game. He was having injury issues. Grealish wasn't really able to break into that City team, but nonetheless, the amount of games they played this year was ridiculous. And really, the Nations League just came at a bad timing for a lot of England players. It's not the best excuse, but these players have really been overworked. And I think that's been the biggest criticism of the Nations League. Just how many football games are you going to put in the calendar year? Is the motivation for profits or is it for quality? What is it for? And that's definitely something that we're going to see, as this competition continues to progress. But I think especially with this England team, we're definitely starting to see some of the harm that it may cause.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement. They do have a nice break now, so we're gonna see a little more emphasis on transfer news recently. Today, some big news about Frankie De Jong to Manchester United. Recently said he's happy at Barcelona. In his eyes, biggest club in the world, and Barca also want 85 million pounds for him. And I can't see United paying that, not after Spurs just went and signed Basuma for 25 million pounds. So I think it's got to be someone else. And I know Ten Hag wanted that reunion, but I just can't see it happening.
Well, his biggest club in the world was playing in the Europa League last year.
Yeah,
Definitely, there's always so much uncertainty, when it comes to Barcelona. They tried to the very end to keep Messi, and it seems like Dembele's on his way out because they just simply can't afford him. Maybe Frankie wants to stay, but the fact of the matter, Barca's the most in debt club in the world, and a lot of these transfer decisions really aren't going to be in their hands. It would be
yeah,
nice to see him in the Prem. I think Ten Hag definitely has some influence, but Frankie's making it clear, so time will definitely tell. But I think a huge piece of transfer news that came out today is Liverpool's star man, the striker, 80 million euros, Darwin Nunez.
yeah,
He's in the Prem. And by the way, before we even dive into it, this Golden Boot race is going to be one for the ages. Cristiano Ronaldo, Erling Haaland, Darwin Nunez, Mo Salah, Kai Havertz will sneak him in there. Son, Harry Kane. The Prem is filled with attacking talent.
Yeah.
It's filled to the brim. This is gonna be one of the best attacking years in the Prem ever, in my opinion. I think you look at the Big Six and their attacking capabilities, and I think for pretty much every single team, they have a star striker on their hands. Jaffe, what are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I mean, Darwin now, I think we can't rule out Diego Jota. I think, like, people kind of seem to forget about him, which feels a little disrespectful, but, I mean, yeah, Darwin, he's gonna be fantastic. I've personally, like, never watched so much of him other than the Champions League, but his stats speak for themselves.
His
The
goals against Barca, come on, he bagged the brace against them.
Yeah, but when I, like, look at transfers, like, I question the value, and a player, like I just said, that I mean, most of the world has never really even seen Darwin Nunez play. Like, you have to question, like, what was the fee was it was probably, I think it was close, it was upwards of 80 million pounds, but, I mean, at that point, like, is it worth it when you have all these attacking options already?
I think it is. Sadio Mane's on his way out. I think Liverpool, you really needed to rush with the replacement.
It's like
We said
80
it ourselves.
million.
We said it ourselves last pod. Luis Diaz, yes, he's exciting. He just came into the Prem though. Diego Jota, all right. Bobby Firmino on the way down. I think Liverpool needed to act fast. I'm very okay with this signing. I think he's a strong player. The price tag is a bit of a fear naturally, but given like the climate of the game, you're not going to get a world class striker below 60 million euros, and that's just a fact.
I mean, like, yeah, it depends, because I feel like City, they got Holland. I mean, they triggered his release clause. They got him under 70 million pounds. So it's like you can't compare those two. You can't compare, like, and Liverpool now, uh, it could be overcompensating a little bit for that Holland transfer. I think they need a, a player for the future, more an English player, like a Jude Bellingham, to spend.
Bellingham's been linked to them, but
Yeah, but, like,
Bellingham
now
comes with a
you
huge
can't see
price
him
tag.
spending that money now.
Huge price tag. Bellingham, come on, that's at least 120 million euro at least. And also, I mean, like you said, like Bellingham, he's not proven the same way Holland is either, though. But I definitely agree, like, they need to invest in the future. But then yet again, look at who's coming into the ranks this season. Harvey Elliott's definitely going to get more playing time. Carvalho from Fulham, Curtis Jones. Liverpool does have a moderately young core. Never mind Ibrahim Konate, at the back. Liverpool has young players. You can't count them out. I mean, listen, they're no Chelsea with Cobham, but they definitely got some young talent.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I think for me, the priority, like, I look at Jordan Henderson aging, I look at Thiago, he's pretty old, Fabinho as well, and then the youngsters and Elliott, Curtis Jones. I don't rate Curtis Jones, like, particularly highly for a Liverpool player, especially, like, we're talking about Liverpool here, like a team that that competes in the Champions League every year. And another big thing, like, the team that they just lost to, look at their midfield options. They just signed Chouameni. They, like, did they need him? They have Valverde, Casemiro, Modric, Cruz, Camavinga. Did they need him? Like, it's depth, and I think,
No, but it's the same thing though. It's investing in the future. You said it.
yeah,
Liverpool has an old core. Real Madrid has an extremely old core. Modric, Cruz, both
yeah,
pushing 35.
yeah,
Casemiro's in his 30s now. I think they're definitely at similar positions, when it comes to reinvesting into a new midfield core.
yeah,
Granted, Real Madrid has the funds to go a little bit crazy, but I wouldn't sell Liverpool too short. I really
yeah.
wouldn't.
No, absolutely, and I don't think anyone can question Liverpool's transfer business in the last 5 years, and say that it hasn't been phenomenal, because it has. But I look at Darwin Nunez for 80 plus million, and I have to question that. Spurs just picked up Yves Basuma. I don't know how you
That's a
pronounce that
sleeper, by the way. That's a sleeper. I
Yeah,
really didn't see Fabrizio Romano posting too much about that.
not at
Woke
all.
up th
Just came right out of nowhere.
woke up this morning and saw 30 million euro. By the way, great piece of business. Brighton's really just been a talent factory recently. Looks like a lot of players that team might be on their way out. It looks like Basuma's the first one to go.
Yeah, and for me, I think you look at the price tag, you're like, "How did we get him for this cheap?" And, like, he 12, months left on his contract, flirted with the transfer with Prison FC for a little bit. So, like, look, I think he's gonna be phenomenal. if I look at Spurs' midfield that I watch week in, week out, we have now he comes and competes with Skip, Højbjerg, and Betancourt.
Well,
Um,
let's see Skip get some minutes first. Let's see what happens there.
Skip has gotten minutes. He has at the beginning of the season before we signed Betancourt, and I mean, of course, Skip was injured, but I promise you right now, Antonio Conte absolutely adores him. He's going to nurture that talent. I think he's going to become incredible. But the thing is, right now, Spurs are clearly building a side that can compete for trophies, the Premier League, the Champions League, everything. The squad is good enough. We have up front right now, I mean, all these attacking options, the links that we have, and the existing players we have. And now I think now that we signed Basuma, I mean, you can count on it to still be a pivot of two just because of the emergence of Kulusevski. But I think I would pair him probably with Rodrigo Betancourt, just a player that can do essentially very similar things to Basuma, in terms of carrying the ball, being like a proper engine, box to box kind of a player. Højbjerg also has been in great form. He's only 26 too. Like we're building a squad that is deep, and I really believe it. Like we're gonna compete now.
I think we've been saying that Spurs, were on the cusp of competing for a while. I think the
Absolutely.
Basuma signing, kind of just strengthens that point. But I don't know if he's going to jump straight into the Spurs starting role. I think Hoiberg's really been manning the ship in the middle of the park for a while. I think Conte
Yeah.
trusts him. And I think he'll give him the keys. But in terms of just depth and a and like a bargain signing, Basuma's good, and he might come back to bite Brighton in the butt a little bit with that cheap piece of business.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they had him until he had 12 months left on his contract. And I think you asked me a little earlier today, like, do you, as a Brighton fan, as the Brighton chairman, as Graham Potter, are you disappointed to only get 25 million out of Basuma? And I don't think so because you held on to him while he rose through the ranks, of midfielders in the Premier League, and they finished ninth last season. Like the only teams that they finished behind were Leicester, West Ham, Spurs, Arsenal, City, uh, United, Chelsea, and Liverpool. So I
Eh,
mean, they were really
Definitely.
good last season.
And you also have to keep in, you also have to keep in mind just like the kind of like budget that they were on. They weren't spending crazy like Villa or
Yeah,
Newcastle. They were really just like a team compiled of smart signings. You got to
yeah,
give that to Graham Potter. But can this Brighton team continue to challenge next season?
yeah. I mean, I
I
think
hope so,
Basuma's.
but they definitely have to hold on for dear life with a couple players. I think Cucurella is probably going to be on his way out. Maybe Trossard as well.
Yeah. By the way, that you mentioned, I think Cucurella to City would just be a perfect fit for them if they're going to do any more business, which I genuinely don't think they need to do. But if they're going to, why not sign like a young, versatile player? He's Spanish. Um, like as a left back, he's very versatile in the sense that he can play in that fluid system that Pep Guardiola loves. And I think playing him at left back when Kyle Walker ends up leaving.
And Zinchenko just really hasn't been all that convincing if we're
Yeah,
being
I mean Zinchenko, he's going to compete. Like he's always competing for a position in that team, but I think Kukure would be excellent.
definitely, and like when we thought that City team couldn't get even crazier. But hey, Cucurella, that's looking like a $50 million signing.
Yeah,
But hey, that's just pennies to City, isn't it?
yeah, pennies to City. Last team to talk about transfers a little bit, and they've been very quiet so far. But I think that's just because bigger things at the club are being sorted out. Chelsea, I know, as a Chelsea fan, you scream out for creativity. Defensively, you guys need reinforcements with everyone leaving, but I think creativity, it's that kind of intangible quality in the side that right now I don't think it exists among your attackers. I think Ziyech has it, but I think another player that would be phenomenal is Usman Dembele. I'm not a Chelsea fan, so I mean, you take this one away.
I'll take it away. Listen, he led La Liga in assists last year. The creativity just oozes out of him. In an interview this past year, Thomas Tuchel asked about who was just the most naturally gifted player he's ever coached. And you would think he would say Neymar. You would think he would say Mbappe, maybe even a Chelsea lad, but no, it was Ousmane Dembele at his time at Dortmund. And he brings a lot. And then yet again, he's also at a very critical point in his career. He's 25 and he hasn't done awfully much too so far. He's had his injury woes. He's had the big money move to Barca that hasn't really panned out. And I think Chelsea's the perfect move for him. He comes to a top European side, always challenging for a trophy, and also a side, definitely in need of support. Definitely, we've lost some players this past season. We'll probably continue to lose a little bit more. And I think Ousmane Dembele is a great signing for Chelsea. And also, with his contract struggles with Barca, hopefully we can definitely pay under the 80 million mark. It's unlikely, but I'll just take whatever we can get at this point. It seems like every week, I just wait for the signing of Jules Koundé to be official, and it's not happening. So if we can
Yeah.
get Dembele, the faster, the better.
Yeah, I think and, like, he'll come cheap, his wages won't, but it's definitely a position, and a player that will take Chelsea, to the next level and provide something that they don't have when they have been struggling,
Mhm.
which I think is that creativity. Thomas Tuchel, he loves to just build, like, that foundation, that secure side, but sometimes, you just need a player that can individually just produce something brilliant. And I think Dembele would be that player for you guys.
I agree, and also, I remember, like, around the time of, like, December, January when both Ben Chilwell and Reece James were just out of the side. We were just missing a lot of, like, crosses going into the box, just constant threats, on the periphery, and I think Ousmane Dembele would be great for Chelsea in that regard. He'll score goals, but most importantly, his distribution is just incredible. Someone, running down the wing, is really stretching the field. I think Dembele would be a great signing for Chelsea, and I'd love to have him. But it's a big summer for Chelsea, and I just have to be patient. Todd Bowley's pledged 200 million euros for the signings. I think we just have to back our manager, and also, we have to lock down the likes of Mount and, for a contract extension. That needs to happen. A lot of Chelsea's, like, business has really been frozen with the whole, like, issues over our takeover and our club leadership. So hopefully now Chelsea can just resume back to normal and take care of business like we have under Roman.
Yeah, and I think that follows for all these Premier League teams this summer. It's getting so competitive, and each of these top sides making marquee signings. City with Haaland, Liverpool with Nunez, Spurs signing Basuma and Perisic. Chelsea, I'm sure, gonna make some moves soon. Arsenal maybe going after a guy like Gabi Jesus. United linked to De Jong. All these players.
I
So
actually came across a really interesting rumor the other day, and it's Lucas Paqueta to Spurs. You
yeah,
know,
I,
he's
I can. I mean,
he's
I
he's been balling on Lyon. He's already a starter, for Brazil these days, and, like, it looks like he's probably gonna cement that role for the
yeah.
upcoming World Cup. What do you think of that potential signing?
I mean, I could talk about Paqueta a bit to Spurs. I think, like, I don't watch him as much again, but just in terms of the player that he is, I think he probably would feature in a front three with Son and Kane. And I think he's less about positional versatility, but tactically, I think Paqueta has brilliant versatility and, like, rotational ability. So I don't know. Like, I think we're linked to another Brazilian player, Richarlison. He also would feature in that front three. But, like, now we have Kulusevski, just these players that are rising. And I mean, with Kane and Son, those two themselves are undroppable. So I mean, we'll see. I think it's definitely creativity is it's not that it's an issue because we have a system of players that you have to follow that system. But I think a super sub like Paqueta or someone off the bench that can, again with Chelsea, just provide those kind of magical moments.
Definitely, definitely. Just something that I wanted to conclude with. It's definitely not gonna be the most action-packed summer, like I've been seeing on Instagram. Today, the World Cup should have started, but it's gonna be a summer where I think a lot of teams are definitely rebuilding and strengthening their sides. I think last season we thought it was gonna be City, Liverpool, Chelsea. Didn't pan out that way, but the Premier League's looking awfully exciting. a lot of emergences of, big teams. Big summer for Newcastle, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Spurs, probably the most exciting team on the come up now in terms of just challenging for silverware. And I'm excited, honestly. Bring on the Premier League. This summer's got to pass. And anyways, Premside Pod signing out.
Cheers.
Cheers.